It's Jakub from the 3D Product Rendering Accelerator, and in today's video, I'll guide you through the process of modeling, texturing, lighting and rendering of this awesome bottle so you can create them yourself. I'll also share with you some mistakes to avoid and how to solve a few issues when you get stuck. Without further ado, let's get started. So as you see here in my Blender file, I already put the reference there. So let's just add the cylinder. And for now, we'll focus on the modeling of this bottle. So let's take our cylinder and match this with the reference. Just like that, some extrusions, simple stuff, just like that, scaling. Now extrude this all the way to the top where we have this angle going on, this nice curvature of the bottle, just like that, extruding, scaling, nothing complicated. And in just a moment, we'll be adding the subdivision surface to smoothen things out. Let's extrude this like that, go to the top and select this loop, Control F, and extrude faces along normals. So we have this thing done. Now let's extrude a couple more, just like that. Perfect. Let's now add the subdivision surface modifier. But before that, actually, we can go and add some details on the bottom. So let's insert, then insert again. And here we will have these, let's say 18 years we'll have here. And here we will have some dots going on all around. So now let's add the subdivision surface. And for now, I won't be adding the adaptive subdivision. I'll do that later on when we will playing with the displacement map. But to enable the adaptive subdivision, you have to go to render properties and switch from supported to experimental. So that's how you get this thing going on. And then in subdivision, I recommend changing max subdivision to something like 8 so you don't have any crashes and stuff, and dicing camera to camera, and then dicing rate render to 1 and viewport to 8 pixels. That will be cool. So yeah, let's go with the model of the bottle. Let's add some loops. So we have these curves going back. Just like that, we can go select all this part and scale this a bit. So we have this matching the reference because we lost obviously some details and stuff. Can add one here. Awesome. Let's hide for now the reference. And here we have to add some more faces. We do this with I to insert. Awesome. Some more loop cuts going on here. We can Control B to, actually let's just add. Very simple. Awesome. And we can add one more here. Let's check how it looks like. Yeah, looks great to me. Here it looks correctly. We can add perhaps even one more. Nice. Here the angle goes okay. Here we have to add one to loops. Here we have to add loops. Here we go with the bevel, just like that. Here also, so we are adding these loop cuts in some kind of symmetry. So we have the symmetry going on. Add one here, also bevel. Nice, this is already coming along, pretty cool. Just like that. Okay, if we shade smooth, looks perfect. So now let's add the inner glass, so the glass inside, and the liquid fluid, or however you want to call this. So set origin to center of mass, volume, and now let's go with solidify modifier. We'll put this above as we'll be separating these objects later on, and when we put the solidify on the top, when we accept the solidify, we have the same result in the viewport basically. So let's add some thickness, even thickness, that's important. And as you see here, we have some overlapping at the top, but don't worry, at the top we'll be deleting this anyway. Let's worry about the bottom, because at the bottom we won't be deleting this part. So yeah, we have to, anyhow solve this. This thickness is cool. So let's apply, and then we have to separate. Select this loop, V to rip, then L to select the inner part, selection, rename this inner outer. Go to separate view, and we can delete this part and just extrude this to the top. So we have this with our bottle like that. The only reason I'm doing this way because it will be much cleaner, and we can just, add the different material for the inner part without any displacement, because we don't want any displacement going on the inner part of the bottle, obviously. So that's the reason why I keep it like that. And let's deal with the mess that was created with the solidify. So basically you have to delete this thing and we will remodel this stuff. So let's see where we have the overlapping going on. Here's one loop and here, and it's just deleted. And then select both of these, right click, loop tools, bridge. And if you don't have loop tools on your right click, then you have to go to the add-ons and enable the loop tools. That's it. And let's see how it looks like with the bottle. Awesome. Looks great. We can just, scale this thing to the middle and it's perfect. So we have the thickness going on, and now let's add the fluid. Shift D, fluid. And now let's delete some faces because we don't want to have the fluid going all the way to the top. And then select this thing. Let's enable the subdivision and I to insert. So we have the nice shape going on. And now we have to put this in between the inner and outer, so the liquid is rendering correctly. I'm doing this with Alt S. Let's disable the subdivision for a moment. Perfect, right in the middle. Let's see how it looks like on the bottom. Great, we have to just go and put these lowers also in between. And let's enable subdivision for everything and check how it looks like. Perfect. So here we have our bottle done, and we have some weird thing going on at the bottom where you see that this is super sharp. And why is it sharp? Well, it's actually because of the normals. For our fluid, we need everything to be blue faces. So we do this with Alt and flip and then Shift N to recalculate normals. And now we have this thing smooth, just like it should be, right? The same thing is for the inner. Here we also are dealing with messed normals, but here we want to have red normals going on. So just select this part where you have the blue, Alt N and flip. And just like that, we have everything perfectly. We can add one more loop at the bottom. So we are kind of following this sharp edge here. Same for the inner. Perfection. Let's just add one more loop here as we lost this. And now let's go with modeling the cork. The cork will be very easy as it's just a cylinder with some scaling going on. So just let's, put this right there. And to add this little part, let's insert and extrude to the top. Let's see if that matches the scale. We can always, resize it, no problem at all. And same story goes here. Let's I to insert. And here we have to look for the inner part to, get the cork matching. So we don't have any intersections or stuff. Okay, it's way too small. Let's scale this. Nice. Put to the bottom and add the subdivision. Here we don't need adaptive subdivisions as we won't be doing the displacement there. So 2 levels of viewport is cool. Now let's add the loop cuts to get these details back. Also insert a couple of faces here and there. Here let's add the bevel. Nice. Loop cut here and insert a couple of faces here. Add the loop cut and we have the cork done. It sits perfectly inside our, bottle, so we are good to go. So with our bottle rendering, the next step is to obviously do the texturing, right? But let's first do the very simple UV mapping. I've noticed under the previous video, some people were mentioning the projection mapping, and that's just the other way to do things, right? So yeah, we just need one seam, and then look, if I select this, hit unwrap, I have the UV map going on. So yeah, we need just one seam and we're good to go. The same is for cork. Let's just add one seam. And then we'll be just, selecting these like that and just U to unwrap. And then using the text tools I used for this Starbucks tutorial, just rectify this. So with our models done, let me show you the step of texturing. And as you see here, I already have so I'll just disable all of this and put the done bottle along with the lighting. So as you see here, we have the bottle done, but let me explain how the textures are done. There are a few things you have to remember. We have, in this case, the displacement map. We have the gold map for this embossed circle or however you want to call it. And we have the graphic. As you see, all of these are the same size. So it's 5000 for 496. And all of these have the stuff in the same place. So as you see here, displacement map, we have these letters in the same place as we have on the label graphic. And this is very important since we'll have only one material and then we'll have these 3 different maps plugged. The way you do the displacement map is with just, if I go to the smart object, you'll notice that I have only these rounded rectangles. Then I have this circle going on, and then I have with different like shades of the gray, these letters. And the reason of different shades is that when you have the displacement map, the value of the black is actually the value of 0. So you have, with the displacement maps, it's actually all about the, contrast. So like we have here all these different colors, that means these will be different displaced. Like as you see here, we have the levels of displacement are different here. So just this adds the variety. And on top of this, we have the Gaussian blur. So we don't have like a sharp displacement going on. We have this done smoothly and nicely. And actually Arthur already made a video where he presented this in more in-depth way. So make sure to check this out. This tutorial is for Cinema 4D, but the Photoshop part is for all the softwares the same. Yeah, very briefly going on. This is how you do the displacement map. So just with Gaussian blur, and then you put all the stuff, and yeah, this is how you do this. Next part is the label gold. So here we have, this is just the mask. So we are basically cutting all the stuff that is black, will not be visible on the gold label. And here is just the labels graphic. And I also put together a simple text and displacement. So this is the made in Blender going on this part here. And we have these dots and 18 years. You might wonder how to actually determine the size of this label. And the way you do this is you have to go to your model. So let's bring back the outer. Just select the part where you will have the displacement going on. Let's U2 unwrap this, go to the UV editing. Let's select this and rectify, rotate this, and just, place it here. Do the screenshot and place it in the Photoshop, and then you will have to adjust this further on. Sometimes you might notice if you have the square perfectly when you have this like tall bottle, label will be very stretched. So then you go back to the Photoshop, change your canvas size to something like you have with my bottle, which is 5000, and then, just adjusting it and you'll be perfectly fine. So now let's cover how to actually put this thing together. I will go step by step with it. So let's start obviously with the displacement map, as this is the most important thing. So breaking down our nodes, here we have the glass shader, which is just the glass, okay? Nothing more. Specular to 1, roughness to 0, transmission to 1, and IOR to 4. Yes, I know. The IOR for glass is something like 1.5, I guess. Something like that, but it depends also on the rendering that you have. So sometimes you have to go try other different things. So in this case, index of 4 worked the best. So here we have our glass, and let me plug only the glass and show you the displacement. So let's go to the rendered. And as you see here, that's how it looks, only the displacement thing. And we have these plugged as PSD. So wherever you just make any change to the PSD file, you have to go to you just save the PSD, go to the UV editing, or you can also, get the image editor, then select your PSD. So just like that, and then image and reload, and this will just reload, so you will have your stuff going on. Another important thing is that in the displacement node itself, you have to manipulate with the mid-level and most likely go with the scale to really low value, because this is by default set to 1, which makes this bump really big. And the next thing is that you have to go to settings, go to the material, and change, because by default, for whatever reason, this is bump only. You have to go and get displacement and bump. Otherwise, this will not render correctly. That's how it looks like with the displacement map. The next thing we're adding is the paper. The paper layer, that is the second layer, looks like that. So we have just the paper layer with the displacement going on. We have to obviously cut everything besides these black text and the label. So we do this using mix shader, and we put inside the mix shader the paper layer and the glass layer. And here's our mask. I'll show you how it looks like. Image editor, just basically cutting the gold part and cutting the label. And let's preview the mix shader, how it looks like. Awesome. Just like that, we have our first layer of materials done without adding any objects for the label itself. And the last part is to add this golden ring, the golden circle. So the way you do this is by adding the textures from ambient CG for the gold. So you have these PBR textures, and then I just added a hue saturation value to get slightly pink color. And then in normal map, I went crazy, get this to 4. So there are much more, details going on. Here you have the mask, basically cutting everything besides the white part. And again, just plugging this mix shader we had with the glass and the paper. We're plugging this to the bottom socket. Here we have the gold layer. So the gold layer, only this gold texture, just like that. And with this mix shader, we have everything put together. At the first glance, this might seem complicated, but once you get into this, you will really understand the true potential of this workflow. This is how you do the displacement thing going on. And now let's go with the bottom part. The bottom part is very similar to what I did with the body. I just added another material that is only for this bottom part. If I select this, as you see here, it's like that. And I added the texture using some projection mapping. I can go to the UV editing, go with the text and displacement. And so basically the projection on that, you just would go to the 7. If you have the bottle straight, now I have this angle to the render, so that's final version. But if you have it straight, you can just go to the top or bottom view, then select the faces that you need and hit U and project from view. This is very, very important. And for this part where you have this like ring going on, the loop is just you unwrap and then rectify. And just then, aligning this. And one thing that could go wrong here is actually that you might have this thing going on and on, because it will be by default repeat. So as you see here, we have many made in Blender text, and you have to just click extend, and then you don't have this thing going, forever. So yeah, that's it for it. The next thing is to do the inner part. And for the inner part, the material is super simple. It's just the glass material without any more thing. Here the IOR is 2. Specular also could be went to 1. And the color is pure white. By default, it's something like that. So you have to just go there and put it to pure white. And the last thing from materials for the bottle is to create the fluid. And the way you do color in Blender, I figured out that the best way is to just do it with volume absorption node. The base color wasn't always giving the best results, but with volume absorption, the life is just much better. If I go to the rendered view, I'll just cut the rendering view. And as you see here, when I unplug the volume absorption, I have pure white fluid. And I plug this volume absorption in, I got decolored. That's just the best way of doing fluids and also colored glass in Blender. The last thing for the cork is the same UV mapping as with the bottle. And here we have 2 materials. One material is the same gold we used before, and I'll include this link in the description. And the next material is for this wooden part, which is just called the cork, as you see here. So yeah, that's for the cork. And the next thing we have to go through is the lighting. As for the lighting, we have 5 different lights, but the light that gives the color for the fluid is actually the backlight. As you see here with the backlight, we have all this cool color. As you see, it's just the plane with the gradient going on. So just like that, we have one light behind. We have left light that adds the details here. And we have the right light for the bottle. And these left and right lights have some RGB curves to just add some, as you see here, these add some purple violet color right there that adds the details to the bottle rendering. Really cool. And then we have 2 accent lights that just add the color and shape for this golden emboss, golden ring. The last thing, one of the last things actually, would be to go to the camera options and add the depth of field. So the way you do this, and obviously with the focal length, go with something like here, 120 millimeters to really get this bottle very detailed, very flat looking when it's very near the camera. So like that, we have to do this focal length very macro, I guess. And yeah, the next thing is to add the depth of field controller. So this is just the empty, as you see here, just the empty, and then camera. Select depth of field and focus object depth of field controller, and then just adjust this to your liking, to what you want to achieve. In this case, we wanted to really just blur out everything besides the label and this part of the circle, and obviously these details on the label. So we wanted to blur out this part with the cork. That's how we did this, so with just the depth of field. And as for the render settings, we go with render 10,000 samples. Denoise, I have open image denoise, but if you have the card with RTX, then let's go with optics. Subdivision, as I said, max subdivisions to 8, so you don't have any strange errors. Then dicing rate, render 1, 8, like that. This leave as default, and dicing camera. Transparent, so you can add later on in Photoshop your background. And then filmic and very high contrast, just like that. And as for the settings for the bottle, this is the only mesh that has the adaptive subdivision. So dicing scale to 0.6, just like that. All the other objects just have the normal subdivision, as they don't need this adaptive subdivision. And if you don't know what adaptive subdivision is, it's basically the closer the object to the camera, the more details it has. So it gives really high subdivision values to the places of the bottle that are very close to the camera. And then for the parts that are, let's say, behind, so like this side of the bottle, these have less subdivisions to, don't kill our lovely computers. So that's how you do these kind of bottles in 3D. I hope you like this video, and if you're looking to step up your 3D game, you can do this today by checking our free training. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.